Well, I want to do a little bit of a continuation from our wonderful guest last Sunday, Linda Martellowitz, who gave us kind of a provocative talk that encouraged us to release our old ideas about God as a separate entity that we need to entreat and placate and cajole to kind of get stuff to happen here. She suggested that we begin to experience the divine more as a principle and less as, well, a dude, one who can fix us and who we can sort of fool into helping us out here. Instead, Linda encourages us to pivot our awareness to that God as divine principle, or principles, the life principle, the love principle, the wisdom principle, as attributes that we can access and then embody and live from. I really recommend that you go back and listen to her talk. You can find it up on our website or back on YouTube. Take notes. I did that this week. I don't wonder if any of you found that your buttons were pushed at all by her talk. Made you maybe a little uncomfortable or even possibly irritated. Because it kind of happened to me a little bit. And that partly why I had to go back and listen again. Did she say what I thought she said? Actually, she didn't. But she did say, be aware this might get in there. This might bother you a little bit. Because she was kind of poking and provoking those old beliefs that we have about this separate entity. And, I thought, well, but, I still want to be able to think of God as my father, my mother. Yeah, you can. It's okay. But take her advice and also bring that in. It's something we're very familiar with here at Unity. It's what we talk about all the time. But we still need to be reminded to do that and to let go of those old ideas. It felt to me, sometimes theologically, we talk about God as being the ground of our being. And I had this feeling when she was talking that she was like taking a spade to that ground and turning the soil over a little. And, I didn't know if I wanted somebody digging down there, Well, we had a further discussion with Linda at our fellowship after the service last week. And she was with us for about 15 minutes or so while she could be. And we talked in part about making these personal statements, I am divine, which, we do at the end of the service now. And I am God. And that one, Reverend Crystal, kind of like to use that occasionally, have us say that. And I still have trouble with it. And one of our congregants, for a couple weeks in a row, has brought this up and said, how much it works for him to say that, but to his spouse, not so much. Like, honey, I don't think so. So, I've been kind of wrestling with that a little bit myself because it's been brought up for a couple Sundays in a row. And, I was brought up Catholic, like a lot of us maybe were. Reverend Linda was saying she was. And, I was brought up to think, Adam and Eve kind of told God to take a hike and say we can kind of handle this ourselves, And they made that first big boo-boo of attempting to usurp God's will. So there, the phrase, I am God, is like, pushes the buttons for me. Seems like the height of arrogance. But, it's all about perspective. And I remember, I had this memory come up for me this week, and I realize it's from 1987, the first time I heard the suggestion that we might say that phrase ourselves. And my wife Martha and I and our then infant daughter traveled to New York City. It was in January to visit a friend, and we're coming back, and it's snowing. And I mean, it's snowing. Such that, just a bit north of New York City, everybody on the highway is like going 12 miles an hour. And I thought, we have to do something else. And we're trying to figure out how this happened, and we kind of did, but eventually we ended up staying the night near Tarrytown in a convent. A convent. And there was a TV in the room, and I turned it on, because what else are we going to do? And Shirley MacLaine had written a biographical book called Out on a Limb, and she made a little mini-series out of it, and that's when it was playing in January of 1987. So I watched that episode of it, and I still have this part of the movie stuck in my mind, I realized. And, gotta love YouTube, because I found it immediately. So in this scene, Shirley is on a beach with her artist friend David, having a conversation. David's kind of a mystic, you can tell. And, they have this conversation. Give it a listen. Take a minute to bring it up, possibly.
You want to know a good exercise that helps you get in touch with the realization that we each have God inside of us?
Exercise.
Here's what you do. Just stand up, hold your arms out like this, and say, the kingdom of heaven is within. I love myself.
The kingdom of heaven is within. I love myself.
No, wait, better than that. Say, I and God are one. No, wait, better than that. I got the best one. This is the best one. Just say, I am God.
David, I can't say that.
See how little you think of yourself? You can't even say the words.
I am God. I am God.
A little louder, please, with maybe a little more conviction.
I am God. I am. Look, if I'm God, what does that make you?
Well, we always see in others what we see in ourselves. I am God. I am God.
I am God.
I am God.
I am God. I am God.
I am God.
I am God. I am God.
I am God. I am God. I am God.
Not you.
I'm. That's a long time ago, yeah. Anybody else remember that? Yeah? A couple people do. It's funny how that stuck with me, because heck, really? I could dig the discussion, and I could dig his first couple suggestions. The kingdom of heaven is within me. I love myself. I and God are one. But I still have trouble with saying, I am God, until I know this time, I didn't remember this, but when they said it together, that made sense to me. That made sense. Saying it by myself, because I'm not separate. And it's acknowledging when we're together, acknowledging the separation is not there, and then we can say that together. Well, I also like a different way of putting this, and it comes from a teacher of A Course in Miracles on the West Coast who put it this way, said, you are not God, but God is all there is of you. Kind of a Zen thing. You are not God. Well, I get that. But God is all there is of you. What? Right? Well, it sounds familiar because it's very much part of Unity's first principle. God is all that is. There is no power apart from God. So therefore, everything that is is God, is a part of God, right? So from that perspective, I really get it. I want to read to you a poem from a young woman named Chelan, I'm not sure the pronunciation, Chelan Harkin. It's called The Worst Thing. She wrote, "The worst thing we ever did was put God in the sky, out of reach, pulling the divinity from the leaf, sifting out the holy from our bones, insisting God isn't bursting dazzlement through everything we've made a hard commitment to see as ordinary, stripping the sacred from everywhere to put in a cloud man elsewhere, prying closeness from our hearts. The worst thing we ever did was take the dance and the song out of prayer, made it sit up straight and cross its legs, removed it of rejoicing, wiped clean its hip sway, its questions, its ecstatic yowl, its tears. The worst thing we ever did is pretend that God isn't the easiest thing in this universe available to every soul in every breath." We started with that meditation, the oceanic experience, and it was nice to have the ocean there as part of that scene, to bring that in. Another image I like to use, and it comes from that same Course in Miracles teacher, is of God as a great diamond, great jewel, a ginormous, really multifaceted diamond. And words from this teacher: if you are looking out from the diamond, looking out now, you can see that there are other facets adjoining you, that's one of the facets now, that seem quite independent of you, having a distinct shape of their own, and so on, all capable of refracting the light. But communication is difficult because you have to bridge that line separating the facets, and you have to somehow communicate around the outer surface of the diamond. But if, as the facet, you look toward the interior of the diamond, you find that the whole diamond is you. And you find that every other facet, every other individuality as a facet, looking toward the interior, finds that the whole diamond is what constitutes them, including you. There's only one interior. And in that interior, you are all one, capital O1, having, you might say, a little bit of the surface area of the diamond, specifically identifying you. And in a way, you can extrapolate from this that the meaning of being both specific and universal at the same time, because you are all universal and specific simultaneously. And that space, if you will, the interior of the diamond, where the one altar is, which is a Course in Miracles term, going within to face that one altar, that Christ presence, that presence of the divine. That's where you're already one, where you're already available to each other to perceive as the Christ that you are. I am God. It's where communion with each other can occur. So Carol's going to help me with a little song. A little bit about this, called Facets of the Jewel. I want to thank Noel Paul Stuckey, who wrote it, for also giving me the title of my talk today. Our lives are connected like facets of a jewel, the reluctance of a wise man, the wisdom of a fool, They border on each other, sometimes kind, sometimes cruel. And our lives are connected like patches on a quilt, sewn by coincidence, some borders edged in guilt. And every choice we make creates a different pattern. Still our lives are connected.
Our lives are connected.
Our lives are connected. Our lives are connected. And who's to say the universe is but a single thought contained within the mind of God? And who's to say it's not? If love is the lesson, then how's the teacher taught? Yes, our lives are connected like waves upon a shore, sometimes with a whisper, sometimes with a roar. Sometimes we think we leave no trace, but sometimes less is more. Our lives are connected like pages in a book. The past is the present through which the future looks. Like leaves on a river, like ripples in a brook. Our lives are connected.
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 Our lives are connected. So yes, when we're attuned to the outside of the diamond, to those facets, you know, we can sidle up to another facet and say, what's with him? You know, or she doesn't really belong here, does she? But it's that moving, that changing our attention to the inside of the diamond. Reverend Linda suggested at the end of her talk that we need to make this a practice every day to go in there to that place, to face that altar as our spiritual practice. And that's great, and we need to do that as individuals. But there's another dimension. It's that dimension of the two of them on the beach facing each other. It's doing that in community like we're doing right here, right now. And that's where we're already one, right? That's where the communion happens. That's where we can perceive the Christs in one another. And if the truth that we know that we're called to live is that we're in fact profoundly one, then this is not an every man or woman for him or herself spirituality, is it? If we think we can do it, you know, on our own, we're missing the boat with a capital B. So I want, as I end this talk, just want this to be a little bit of a call to action for us. Because, you know, we've had 18 months of the pandemic saying, you may not get together, you go over there and stay in your room. If you want to survive, get away from everybody else, right? It's closeted us off. It's like some crazy board game where this is thrown at us and we have to figure out how to win the game. And it's a cooperative game, otherwise it's not going to work. So we've been doing that, right, for 18 months, trying to figure this out. How do we do this together? And we found ways of doing that together. And we found ways of being that community together. And, we're going into the fall, and I'm kind of feeling it. It's like, again? Seriously? So I want this to be a call to action that we all kind of take a deep breath, say, yep, hallelujah anyhow. I'm going to do this. We're going to be this community. Because, we're standing at this precipice right now where I really think that there's a whole new big chapter for us as Unity of Albany awaiting to happen. And it's about that new leadership coming, that wise, humorous, loving, perfect, perfect but imperfect minister. That person is coming. I think, my vision is by the end of this year, certainly. What about that beginning part of our affirmation? We are ready to receive. Or that ending part, we are just the right congregation. Because that's where we need to make a little bit bigger commitment right now, I think. Do we have our house in order? So how do we do that? A few times during this time period, a couple people here and there have come up to me and said, thank you for holding this church together. Well, it's not my job. It's all of our job. And, these three people right here, for about 80 straight weeks, have come up here and sung their hearts out to an empty room until very recently. That's holding this church together. That's being ready to receive. Our board of directors, holy mackerel, board of trustees, many of whom said, I've been doing this for a while, my time is really up, but I need to keep doing this because we got to somehow get through this together. Wow, it's a formidable task. Those of you showing up, tuning in, going on Zoom again, right? That's holding this church together. That's being ready to receive. A congregant who a couple years ago moved to France, who is here virtually in 2 different ways every week. Actually, he's in town now. It was a long swim, but he's here. And so I'm just putting that out there to those of you who might have been tempted to say, yeah, I think I'll just wait till we have a new minister and kind of see what happens. Or, yeah, I can't do this online stuff really anymore. And, I want to encourage us all not to go there. Or if we've gone there, take another look. Because I believe we really need to be ready to receive for this to happen, for this new chapter to happen for our church. So, that's... Someone emailed us last month and said, today was my first time back to church, and I'm so glad I came. I had been feeling disconnected to church and uncertain about continuing with the Unity, but today's service was perfect in every way and reminded me why I felt at home here. Yes, thank you. If you need a break, go on a nature walk with some of our congregants, as Jean said. Yeah, there's so many ways. It's another way to keep that thread, to keep those facets connected, right? So, please join me today in recommitting. You know what? Stand up. Do this. Let's say it together. I am God. Again, I am God. Amen. And so it is. Together we are that presence. Let's be that presence. Thank you.